Welcome to On the Vineyard, a 10-minute weekly wrap-up of news from the Vineyard Gazette Media Group on Martha's Vineyard. I'm publisher Monica Brady-Meyerhoff. We're so glad you're here. On the Vineyard is sponsored by Martha's Vineyard Bank. It was a quiet week on the Vineyard as many people with school-aged kids headed off the rock for school vacation. It was also a pretty cold week, but on sunny days it was nice to drive up island and see all the daffodils in bloom. This week, there was a bombshell ruling about affordable housing.
Does the Martha's Vineyard Commission, which has for decades now overseen large housing projects, affordable housing projects especially, if that's in their jurisdiction, should they be involved in permitting these?
More on that story in a moment. In this week's paper, there's also a story about Belle Burden's new memoir about the breakup of her marriage. Her memoir features Vineyard Osprey, who generally mate for life. Here is Belle reading a passage from her book when she comes to the decision to file an inflammatory response in her divorce.
There was something growing in me, an almost nihilistic desire to set flame to the remaining structures of my former life, to the very safety I clung to the fiction that I could depend on anyone other than myself for protection, to the idea that being quiet was the only way to be good, and a deepening of an instinct within me since the first days after James left, that the truth was the only possible foundation for what would come next. On Thursday, February 18th, I wrote to my lawyer, "I'm ready. Let's file it."
Belle Burden's book is a #1 New York Times bestseller. And now back to the island and the beloved Chicken Alley charity shop. It has new leadership. Lisa Belcastro was the former head of Harbor Homes Homeless Shelter and is now the director of operations. There was recently a shakeup at the head of the Martha's Vineyard Community Services, which runs Chicken Alley, and also with leadership at the thrift store. Lisa said she's passionate about the work because, she tells the Gazette, it's so important globally, ethically, and morally just to make best use of what we have. I can agree with that. That's the sound of the historic press in the Vineyard Gazette offices in Edgartown printing the paper. This week, I'm talking to the managing editor and reporters. The blockbuster news of the week has to do with building affordable housing on the Vineyard. Managing editor Ethan Genter is here to tell us more.
Hey, Monica. This week we had a ruling from the Housing Appeals Committee, which is a state body that weighs in on affordable housing disputes. And this had to do with Edgartown Gardens, but it spoke to a much broader issue of what permitting looks like for affordable housing on the Vineyard.
What is the main question in the dispute?
So the question has been, does the Martha's Vineyard Commission, which has for decades now overseen large housing projects, affordable housing projects especially, if that's in their jurisdiction, should they be involved in permitting these? Like I said, for years they've done this along with town ZBAs, but we stand alone basically in the entire state in that matter. No one else does it except for us. We have this special, regional planning agency that's no one else really has. And what happened this week was the State Housing Appeals Committee said, actually, you're not different. You should do what everyone else does. This should only be the Zoning Board of Appeals that gets to regulate these.
And it seems part of what's at the heart of the question is whether the commission is a local board or not.
Yeah, what this has to do with is there's the state statute for affordable housing called 40B, which allows you to skirt some zoning regulations if you provide a certain number of affordable units to underserved communities. So this has been, a law for several decades now, something that a lot of towns have used to get affordable housing. The Martha's Vineyard Commission has long contended it is not a local board. What the law does is condenses all of the permitting to a single board, the Zoning Board of Appeals. And what it says is a local board can't step into this regulatory role. And so the question has been, what does this weird in between? It's not a state body. It's not a town board. What happens with the Martha's Vineyard Commission?
So in the end, if this ruling stands, could it mean that there'll be more affordable housing built on the Vineyard?
That isn't kind of a one-to-one exactly. What happens is there's going to be less review. There's, instead of 2 layers of review, the Martha's Vineyard Commission has long been the more stringent review. Here on the island, zoning boards of appeals really lean on the Martha's Vineyard Commission to take the first kind of whack at these projects. What we'll see, the end result isn't quite clear, but what it is it puts a lot more pressure on the town zoning board of appeals. These volunteer bodies of usually 5 people to oversee some of these very large, very expensive projects.
And I imagine this is not the end ruling. Like there's going to be appeals and more judgments coming, right?
Yeah, I mean, literally an hour after this came out, the Martha's Vineyard Commission told me they're going to appeal this. There's already lawsuits going on about this. This is something that, I mean, if I had to guess, as someone who's followed courts for a long time, would take several years.
Thanks a lot, Ethan.
Thank you, Monica.
Now on to a lighter topic, the Dock Street Fight Club Band. They're known for their live shows in the summer at the Ritz, the Wharf, the summer dock dance concerts. Haley Sandlow caught up with the band on the road because they're on tour. What is our hometown band up to, Haley?
Our hometown band is going all over the South, performing at fraternity events and bars with live music and accumulating a following down south. They recently signed with a management company and have a brand new single coming out in just 2 days. So things are looking up for the band, and they're all very excited for what's coming next.
How is life on the road for them?
Well, it's certainly more driving than you'd ever do on the Vineyard. You have 2 of the band members who are local, and then another 2 who are in Providence and Worcester, finishing up school. And they all have lives, they all have jobs. And so they get together and drive sometimes more than 20 hours to get to the South, toting a trailer behind them with all their equipment. They told me they've eaten a lot of gas station food, played a lot of road games, and listened to the entire Harry Potter series on audiobook. So lots of time spent together, but it really just helps them build chemistry so they can be completely electric when they're on the stage, performing their covers and performing their originals.
What do they want out of this touring, and what's their goal?
Some of the band members described success in different ways, right? So to them, success is how many people can they get at their live shows. It's not necessarily about the money, but about getting their music out to as many people as possible. They're trying to make it off the Vineyard and make it as an indie band. And they have their own careers. The lead singer and songwriter is a pre-med and a senior in college. The lead guitarist owns an HVAC company here on the island, and their bassist is working for an Alzheimer's research lab in Providence. And so all of them are sort of balancing their careers with this bigger dream they have of really going big with their music.
Well, good luck to them, and thank you so much, Haley.
Thanks, Monica.
Well, I woke up this morning in the drizzling rain. Out there in the distance, got the passenger train.
Here is some music from the Dock Street Fight Club, a song called Drizzlin' Rain. You can read Haley's story and all the news for free at vineyardgazette.com. Many farms are opening up on the island. In the Vineyard Gazette's Cook the Vineyard newsletter, Susie Middleton writes that she was happy to see that both Whippoorwill Farm and Take-A-Me Farm in West Tisbury opened up this past week for the season with lots of tulips, gorgeous ones in all colors. North Tisbury Farm has flowers too. Also, you can learn to create a food forest in your own backyard on Sunday at Beetlebung Farm. And Giordano's Pizza is open, so you know the season is getting underway. You also are going to notice on the vineyard that dogwood trees are starting to bloom. Polly Hill, the pioneering horticulturalist whose internationally acclaimed work raising trees and shrubs from seed was interviewed by Lindsay Lee in 2001 about planting dogwoods from seed.
This is the Cornus Cusa Alley. It's about 30 trees grown from seed of Cornus Cusa, the Chinese, Japanese, Korean dogwood. Each one is different from the next, but we planted them about 23 feet apart to make a double allée, which is very attractive when they're all in bloom white. And then recently, you can see that some of them have developed a wonderful spotting on the bark, marbling in different colors, a sort of a peachy tan and a gray in great spots, which is very interesting, and they don't do that until they're fairly mature.
Polly Hill died in 2007 at the age of 100. Thank you to the Martha's Vineyard Museum for sharing this audio. Our theme music is from island composer and musician Michael Hayden. If you like the show, please follow us so you won't miss an episode, and tell a friend who loves the Vineyard. Thanks to our sponsor, Martha's Vineyard Bank, committed to supporting the Martha's Vineyard and Falmouth communities through their charitable foundation and local partnerships, including a $20,000 grant to the Falmouth Service Center that helps reduce hunger and housing insecurity. Martha's Vineyard Bank, your goals, our guidance. mvbank.com. I'm Monica Brady-Meyerov. Thanks for joining us on The Vineyard. Talk to you next week.